Whispers of the Old God reviews. Been a lot of reviewing going on. Total 10 parts, so this is the second to last one. Today we're going to talk about Warlock cards. Warlock's always been one of my favorite classes in Hearthstone, and so I really look forward to new expansions because it's always fun to find new Warlock cards. I will say this expansion's pretty disappointing. I think most of these cards are not so exciting, so well, let's go through them all. Okay. First of all, Cho'Gall. This is the legendary Battlecry. The next spell you cost health instead of mana. This is a really interesting effect, and a lot of people are talking about how this is so great, blah blah blah. I don't believe this is great. The reason is two reasons. One is there just aren't a lot of good spells that you want to cast with this. I mean, everyone talks about Siphon Soul, but now you're doing a 7+6 mana, 2-card combo, which is okay, right? Being okay isn't good enough for 7 mana, You still had to use those 2 cards, right? So, yeah, I mean, I think that's, pretty decent if you can pull that off, the Siphon Soul Cho'Gall play or whatever. But I just don't think it's good enough. Like, I've said this over and over in all these reviews, and what I always say is, in Hearthstone, if you spend more than probably 4 mana. If you spend 5 or more mana on something, you have to do something really good, right? And so, is this really good? Well, not really. I mean, like, it's not as good as Doctor Doom, right? And it's 2 cards instead of 1 as well, right? It's 2-card combo. So, yeah, that's the sort of, I guess, reason I have that I don't think it's great. Now, I think it's good. I don't think it's bad. But, yeah. The second reason is because I just don't think that the Warlock decks that are going to be the good Warlock decks are going to be slow. Warlock lost Dark Bomb, Warlock lost Zombie Chow, Molten Giant was nerfed, so Handlock's going to be a bit harder to play. There are no demons, there's no Mal'Ganis, so no Implosion. It's harder to play a defensive Warlock. I think it's still possible, but I think the best competitive Warlocks are going to be more Zoo type, Rush Warlocks, and this is not a card you want to play in those decks at all. So those are the 2 reasons why I don't think this card is great. I think it's okay, and I think it's also something that you're going to have to look at this card every next expansion and new spells that come out and look for crazy combos. But for now, there's not really big enough things that matter for this to be played. Alright, the next card is Doom. Destroy all minions, draw a card for each. I think this card is just bad. Twisting Nether is verging on bad. Maybe it's okay. People play it. This card's worse than Twisting Nether. You don't need to draw cards in Warlock. You draw cards with your hero power. I mean, just to compare this directly to Twisting Nether, I mean, you could tap in Twisting Nether instead of playing this, and you drew 1 card instead of, let's say, 3 or whatever. I mean, if you're playing Warlock and you have this in your deck, your hand's going to be pretty full. I mean, you may fatigue yourself. It's just bad. I don't think this card will work. Renounced Darkness is really interesting and probably one of the most fun cards I've seen in a long time, and I surely plan on trying to make some crazy fun decks with it, but it's not a competitive card. It's just too random. I guess I don't really know exactly how it works. As I understand it, you replace all your hero power and Warlock cards with another classes, and then all those new cards cost 1 less, so it gives you a bunch of cheap hero class cards. Hero class cards can be all over the place, though, right? Like, look at the ones we're even looking at right now. I mean, getting 9 mana Dooms instead of your Flame Imp or whatever probably isn't something you want. So it's really hard to evaluate this without outplaying it, but my suspicion is it's just way too random and to be good. I mean, generally you want to build a deck that has like synergy and works well together, and makes that impossible. Now you're just going to get a bunch of random cards, and we know most cards are bad, right? People say it over and over. Most cards are bad. There are only a few great cards, and that's why so often so many great cards just get played over and over, and that's why the metagame's so stale right now. And the fun part about these new expansions is figuring out what those great cards are. But that means it's way less likely this is a great card, because all those other cards you get from it are probably going to be bad. Spreading Madness. I like this card. I think it's actually pretty cool. 9 damage all characters. This is better as a control card. Whenever your opponent's head on board, it's way more likely to kill a lot of their stuff or hit a lot of their stuff. It also opens up the potential to try to make some crazy Patron Warlock deck with this. Probably too slow to play a Patron Warlock deck because, I mean, the reason Patron's so strong in Warrior was mostly because of Deathspite and being able to play Patron, Inner-Rage, and Deathspite all on turn 5, and so then you could combo on turn 5, right? Now, new Patron decks for Warrior are still going to be able to combo on turn 6. This would be like turn 8, it's probably too late. It's still kind of a cool card, and I think it's okay. Darkshire Librarian, discard a card, discard a random card, and then Death Rattle, draw a card. This card's okay. I mean, like, it's not good right now. It may be good in the future if they print more Fist of Draxus type things. Right now, there are just not enough of those things for this to be played. But once again, a card to look out for in Wild in the future. As we get more and more expansions and there are more and more cards where discarding does something, this could actually be good. But for now, it's just setting up to happen, and it's a future good card. Alright, Forbidden Ritual, spend all your mana, summon that many 1/1 tentacles. This card, I'm on the fence on. I've seen some people say it's good, I've seen some people say it's bad. I tend to be sort of more in the middle. I think it's potentially okay. I don't think it's a great card. I think it's more of a synergy card. This card by itself isn't good, but like it's good with other cards. So like playing this with Knife Juggler, playing this with Darkshire Councilman, who we're talking about later, playing this with Sea Giant, playing this with Gormok the Impaler, or like Reliquary Seeker in your deck and stuff like that. So you want to play like a more token-based deck, playing it with Direwolf Alpha. So this is a Zoo card. It fits in a lot of synergies of Zoo. It could be good as like Muster's going away and like Implosion's going away. A lot of ways to answer a lot of tokens is going away other than this itself, I guess. But so we'll have to see how that works. I mean, a lot of tokens can be used a lot better in Zoo Warlocks than they can in other types of decks. I mean, I'm assuming trying to make a Sea Giant deck work is my first inclination of what to do in the new format, because Sea Giant wasn't nerfed at all and Big Game Hunter was nerfed. So this is probably a card we're going to need to play in order to try to make those Sea Giants work. It's not as good as Implosion. I don't think anyone would ever play this card in Wild currently unless there's some other crazy combos, but it's definitely a synergy card. By itself, not so great, but I still think it's a good card because of the synergy stuff. Usher of Souls, this is one of the cards that would work well with Forbidden Ritual. However, I don't think these cards, like there's a lot of these cards, these Cthulhu, well, I think Cthulhu's not great in general, but especially these cards where they have some mechanic to try to stack 1/1s. So another example is the Priest one where it's a 3/6 and every time you heal it gets 1/1. Well, this card and that card are good cards, not because of their Cthulhu ability, but more because they're actually just good stat lines. So this is a 5/6 for 5, which, to be fair, there are 5/6 for 5 that are not played currently, right? Like, forget the name of the card, Pit Fighter or something, isn't played. So now a lot of that was because, Sludge Belcher, Healbot stuff were really good, and those are being rotated out. So it's possible Pit Fighter will be played now. It's possible this will be played as well. My inclination is towards a no. I don't think Cthulhu is good. I don't think Cthulhu Warlock is good. If Cthulhu's not good, then this is basically Pit Fighter for the most part, so probably not great. Darkshire Councilman, another very polarizing card. It could be really good, could be really bad. It's really hard to tell without playing. Obviously, this is a card that could synergize very well with Forbidden Ritual as well. I tend to think this is okay, but not great. I mean, the main problem I have is, like, so this card is not as good as Imp Gang Boss, right? Like, Imp Gang Boss is basically a 3/5 for 3 with upside of pulling off even crazier things. Imp Gang Boss also allows you to create more tokens rather than needing tokens to use it. Like, there are already plenty of cards that you need tokens to make better, right? Like Sea Giant, Reliquary Seeker, which is probably not good enough, right? Gormok the Impaler, Direwolf Alpha. Those are just the standard ones. I mean, so creating tokens is way more valuable than a card that benefits from having a bunch of minions. That being said, like, if this is, let's say, I guess another point to make is 3/5 is decent, but it's not like overpowered, right? We saw Dragon Warrior decks have 3/5s that were fine. Um, so just having, if this is guaranteed to be a 3/5 and you have to like do some stuff to make it a 3/5 for 3 mana, it's still just fine. It's not like overpowered or anything, right? So to make this card really good, it needs to be like a 4/5, and then in that case you need to sack 3 minions, and that's just way harder. So I guess my initial impression is it's probably not going to be good enough, but it's at least interesting. Possessed Villager, 1/1, summon a 1/1 Shadow Beast. I mean, it's okay. The big sort of comparisons between Argent Squire. Argent Squire is better when you Defender of Argus it or buff it. This is better whenever you power overwhelming it or kill it. I don't think either one of them is super fantastic. I mean, a lot of the reason to play Argent Squire... I mean, I'll be playing some Argent Squires in some decks in this format, but a lot of the reason to play Argent Squire was to deal with 2/1s, and Leper Gnome got nerfed, so it's no longer going to be played. So there's going to be less 2/1s to hit with an Argent Squire. And the same goes for this, so probably just mediocre for me. I think the only card I'll probably be playing out of all these is probably the Forbidden Ritual, and I'm not super excited by that. The thing is, right now Zoo Warlock is probably the actual best deck in the game. In the expansion it's going to be weakened quite a bit, because the reason it's the best deck in the game has a lot to do with Haunted Creeper and what's the other card? Nerubian Egg, for 2 reasons. One, because those are the best cards to play early and then buff later, and then secondarily because those are the best cards to defend against AoE. The new Zoo decks will not have a defense against AoE, and they will not have early game minions that are easy to stick around to use their late game buffs on. So the new Zoo decks will be weaker. They also don't have an Implosion as a comeback mechanic. So basically this card will be, or Warlock in general should not be one of the best decks anymore, but it'll still be like sort of middle of the pack to low middle of the pack, or to, you know, it's not going to be as bad as Priest and Rogue, for example, in my mind. Alright, so let's go ahead and try to build a Zoo deck just to kind of show that off. So there are some things which we have maintained which are still very good. I mean, we still have a lot of really good early game minions, and I guess we want to show standard only. So we still have a lot of good early game minions. We still have Dark Peddler. We have to replace a lot of our 2-drops. Wrathguard could be a good card. I think it sort of probably is. I mean, it's a 4/3. The reason people didn't play this is because there are just too much competition at the 2-mana spot. We're obviously still playing Imp Gang Boss. I'm leaning towards not playing Doomguard. I'm thinking we're still going to stick with the more like Leroy plan. So we don't lose any of the 1-drops from a traditional Zoo deck. The real place we're getting affected is the 2-drops, so I mean, we probably still want to play Knife Juggler in this deck, just because maybe we're going to go up to 2 Direwolves. We're probably not going to play the Owl anymore. I'm not sure if I want to play... I think I still want to play Knife Juggler, actually. Even though it's a 2/2, this is one of the decks where we're going to have... Actually, you know what? I'm going to play my... One of my favorite cards from this is this Bluefin Tidehunter. I'm going to play that card on the 2 slot. Probably will play a Bran because Big Game Hunter's nerfed. We're going to probably play the Defender of Argus still. And we're probably going to play the Gormok still. We want to play the Sea Giants still. That's why I want to play this card, because it's very decent synergy with Sea Giant, Knife Juggler, Cormac. Alright, so we still want to play Leroy. So we lost some sort of late game strength. I think maybe we're going to play like a Dark Iron Dwarf or something like that. instead of a Lotheb. We also lost like a Dr. Boom type of late game play, but we're playing a second Sea Giant instead of that. Trying to think like the Silence. The Silence could be a big deal just because. So this deck's worst matchup is Freeze Mage, and it's even worse with no Silence. I mean, maybe we just play a 3-mana Silence, or a 4-mana Silence is actually maybe better. Like playing no Silence is just too risky. And anything else we want to try out of here? Probably not. Could play one Mortal Coil. Could play Reliquary Seeker. Curse of Rafaam, I guess, is a good counter to Freeze Mage. Maybe we should play that instead of a Silence. Silence is more flexible versus other decks, though, so I guess we'll stick with the Silence. I mean, I think we just pretty much lose to Freeze Mage anyway. My contention is, though, is that like Freeze Mage won't stick because Shaman will be so prevalent in. I mean, this is just like, we have one spot for just some kind of tech card. I guess another thing we could do is just play the Eater of Secrets card. I mean, then we can just... It's a 2/4, which isn't great. But in theory, one of the only bad matchups for this deck will be... What are the bad matchups for this deck? Like Face Hunter is a bad matchup, and also Freeze Mage is a bad matchup. So maybe just playing that one tech card's worth it. This is good against two of our bad matchups. I think I want another neutral. Maybe a Flame Juggler is my last card. And actually I'm going to play 2 Flame Jugglers and 1 Direwolf. Yeah, so something like this seems pretty good, I think. This could still be a really good deck. This card's so good against a lot of matchups. Like versus Aggro Shaman, this card will be very good. Pretty good against Warrior. Still good with Knife Juggler. Still good with like Sea Giant and Gormok. Yeah. Actually, after looking at this deck, I think it's even better than I thought previously. It's definitely pretty strong. So I guess I'll revise my opinion and say I think Warlock's going to be somewhere in the middle of the pack in the new expansion as far as this type of deck. And if Freeze Mage is super popular, then you just play more and play 2 of these. You know, like playing a 2/4 kind of crappy tech cards less bad in Warlock because you can just tap for cards. So it's less punishing than it would be in other classes because you have more cards to work with. Also, it's less punishing because like you're going to have like Dark Iron Dwarf, Defender of Argus, Direwolf Alpha, Power Overwhelming, like ways to make the 2/4 more useful, I guess, you know. So, alright, well, that'll be the end of part 9 of the Whispers of the Old God review. We've only got one last review left, which is Warrior. Warrior is one of my favorite classes, so I'm really looking forward to the Warrior, and that should be really fun. And thanks for watching this video.